Okay, good morning, Boker Tov, and a very happy Tu B'Av to all. Appreciate everyone's flexibility. As I said, this summer is erratic. Baruch Hashem, traveling for many simchas. We should always travel only for simchas. That's why it's critically important to be part of our WhatsApp group, get bonus material, and find out the latest schedule. You can join the WhatsApp group at rabbiefremgoldberg.org/WhatsApp. Join all the WhatsApp groups of the different shiurim, get bonus material, and find out the schedule. Our Emunah series is generously sponsored by Dr. Zavi and Bella Morgan in memory of Rabbi Dr. Brian Galvin, in memory of Bella's mother, Dr. Ellen Shanza. This morning's shir is also sponsored by the Felder family in memory of Chaim Shimon ben Yosef, a survivor who spent his day educating our youth and found Emunah in the darkest places. We're very grateful to the family for sponsoring. Okay, as always, we'll start out with a couple of emails, inspiration emails, and then we'll get back into the text, into what we are learning together. Before we get into the email, I just want to share, we have visiting with us this week from Eretz Israel, from Israel, a very special soldier. When Rabbi Brody, Rabbi Gibber, and I went to Israel shortly after the war began, we went to army bases, we connected with the Eretz Chemda community in Yerushalayim, and we had some events together. There's a very holy soldier, a very special young man. I don't want to say his name, telling these stories without his, not without his permission, but I don't want to say his name, but he's a very, very special, very special. He, on October 7th, on that Simchas Torah morning, he's a Hummer driver in the Tzanchanim, in the paratroopers. He's a reservist. He has married with 3 beautiful children, has a 4th now, has a new baby. And he left his family to go on October 7th, to drive down to Kfar Aza, to begin his journey, to participate in this war, in this battle, in this fight, and was tasked in those first days, and I don't want to share in graphic detail, but with really unimaginable responsibilities of collecting bodies, retrieving bodies, parts of bodies, identifying bodies, fighting enemies. And in the 5 months he was in Gaza, over the last 10 months, continued to risk his life on missions like that and others in really extraordinary and selfless ways, like so many. And they're now here for a couple of weeks, in New York and in Florida, in order to reconnect with his family. You know what it is for 3 young children, 6 and younger, 4 young children, 6 and younger now, to go 5 months without a father. Every time now he leaves the house, they run after him, they hold on to him. When he says, I'll be back soon, they say, you're lying, you're not coming back. It's horrific, it's scary. And as I've been saying, in Israel, there are soldiers who have visible physical wounds, and there are countless who carry other scars that you can't see, but yet are deep and painful and also need love, support, and recovery. So I was talking Friday night, we had the family over for Shabbos dinner. Every trip I've taken to Israel over these last 10 months, connected with this young soldier and his family. He's young. Young means younger than I am. He's 30, so young. Anything younger than me is young. So we've connected, and Baruch Hashem, we're close and grateful to be close. So they were Friday night, we were talking about Hashgacha Pratis and Emunah, and living with Emunah and seeing Hashem's hand everywhere, and the incredible stories that happened to us. I heard the most remarkable, extraordinary story when I paid a shiva call to Rebbe and Miriam Fox. Heard the most incredible story. We'll save it for next week or a couple weeks. It's an amazing story of Hashgacha Pratis, really one of the most amazing stories. So I told the story at the Shabbos table. We were talking about Emunah, and he says, this soldier said, Rabbi, I have to tell you, Emunah stories don't inspire me, don't impress me anymore. They don't touch me, because when I was in Gaza for 5 months, it was all Hashgacha Pratis. And so everything that happens and everything I see and everything that I live and everything I put down in front of me and everyone who steps in the room and everywhere we go, it's all from Hashem. And he continued to list horrific, tragic moments that he felt were divinely designed, and also incredible, miraculous moments. A moment they were walking into one of the houses that they were clearing bodies, in Nachal Oz, in Kfar Aza, and they were about to open a door to go in and to look, to see what they'd see, and one of the soldiers yelled, stop! And on top of that door, which was open just a little bit, was a grenade. Had they opened that door, the grenade would have fallen. He wouldn't be here today. He was driving his Hummer in Gaza through a battlefield, and one of the passengers yelled, Tatzor, hit the brakes, stop! And he slammed on the brakes and he stopped, and he saw an RPG pass right in front of them. At that moment, it was aimed, it was directed, it was right at them. And there were many stories he told like that of Hashgacha. So he said, everything is Hashgacha. And it's just transformed his life. So on their way, this family's way from New York down here, 4 young kids, 6.5 and under. Not easy to travel. And they had challenges with the luggage when they were checking in, which made them a little delayed getting to the gate. They got to the gate, and the gate was still open, and people were still getting on. And they The gate agent said, "You're a minute late," and closed the door in their face. They missed the flight. Their luggage was already on. He said, "The door is open. We saw the last people getting on. We're here. We have young children." He slammed the door in their face and said, "You're a minute late." And he said before October 7th, he would have been fire, upset, angry, disappointed, frustrated. He would have responded. Now he just said, "Okay, Hashem, you don't want us to be on that plane. This is not the flight that we were meant to be on. We'll see which is the next flight, where we're supposed to be." Whole life is now seen through the glasses, through the prism, through a life of hashgacha, just extraordinary stories and extraordinary perspective. And I share them. These are real life people. We're not reading about them in a book. They're not a fairy tale. They're not aspirational, who we want to and one day should be. When we meet, when we see, when we listen, when we learn, then you see these are real people, ordinary people. If you're in Yerushalayim and you walk by this family in the park or in the supermarket, they're just ordinary people, but they're living extraordinary lives now and always. There are ordinary people living extraordinary lives, and it's all an enormous inspiration and a machayev, an obligation for all of us, because it means we're capable of living those lives too. We could be living in that way. We could be living with that life. It doesn't just mean, when the RPG passed, hashgacha prata, slammed on the brakes, we're alive. Hashgacha, the grenade didn't fall from on top of the door. It's not just the miraculous moments that have the positive, happy ending to them. It's also when the door gets slammed in your face and you say, that door closed, another will open. I don't know why doors close and why some open. I am where I'm meant to be. Like we shared last week, Sapir, who spoke here on Tisha B'Av, held hostage by Hamas 55 days. When she transformed her thinking to feel, I am where I'm meant to be. This is where Hashem put me. What do I do with it now? Not why am I here and I only have myself to blame and the mistakes I made, I wouldn't have been taken. But I am where I'm meant to be. A Yiddish Jew is never stuck. Why am I here? Rabbi Goldberg, hope you're enjoying your time away. We're still catching up on the emails. I was at PRS this evening to deliver packages for Tomchei Shabbos. You may not know, but we started an organization called the Florida Chesed Network. And every Thursday, young children come and pack for over 40 families, and others come and pick up and deliver Tomchei Shabbos, boxes of food for those to be able to make Shabbos. Different than the BRS Tomchei Shabbos, which is done a little differently and more discreetly, but this is the classic Tomchei Shabbos, packing boxes, delivering boxes. We're very proud. We have to share more of the difference the Florida Chesed Network is making. So this is somebody who delivers. I was driving a very large SUV, which was a rental car I got this week, as our van was at the mechanic. I pulled into a spot, turned off my car, and popped the trunk so I could load the boxes. As I cross the street, I see the boys who help out starting to bring my boxes, and all of a sudden, I see my rental car sliding backwards. I forgot to put it into park. I was so stunned that I froze, and in that moment, someone happened to be standing in the parking lot, saw what was happening, jumped in my car, and put it in park. It was literally 3 inches from hitting the car behind it. Baruch Hashem, no one was behind the car, despite it being a busy time with lots of people coming to volunteer. I felt and continue to feel such gratitude to Hashem that someone was in the exact right place at the right moment, had the fortitude to act so quickly and without hesitation, and that no one was hurt, no damage took place. I wish I could carry this feeling of gratitude all the time. Perhaps it's not within human nature. Thank you for the share and reminding us to see everything as being from Hashem, even when it is not so obvious. Wishing a good Shabbos. Okay, while we're talking about cars, next car. Thank you for shirim, blah, 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 blah. Really, the following story occurred to me the other day. I just finished class and went to the parking garage to get my car and leave. I got in my car, drove to the exit, got my ticket to pay for the parking pass. I opened my door, rolled down my window, got out my credit card to pay. As I reached over to put my credit card into the reader, the credit card fell right into the windowsill. Immediately, I felt like, no way. Dumbfounded that was even possible, right? Where the window goes down, the little slit, credit card, right down the windowsill. I searched all around my car and on the floor, but it was so quickly confirmed my credit card was in the exact place and the exact angle needed for it to slip right into the car window without being able to be retrieved. I paid with another card, all the while thinking, okay, Hashem, I don't understand why, but let's see how this turns out. I left and then phoned a friend who immediately burst out laughing when I said over the story. My prior embarrassment immediately faded. She said I could just get a new credit card. It's not a big deal. I then realized that this card, which we all put so much value on, is just a piece of plastic. It can easily be replaced. My car and window were working well, Baruch Hashem, and I was reminded, although I don't know why Hashem decided to have my card fall the exact angle in time to go straight into the window, that all things considered, it was harmless. Perhaps it was to teach me there are things that can be stressful, occur throughout life. It's up to us to choose how to handle the situation. Shurim have definitely helped. Maybe we zocha to give many more podcasts, up to 1,000, 10,000. May the hostages come home, the IDF soldiers safe. and the Geula come b'mheira v'yameinu. Again, small, insignificant, inconsequential piece of plastic. The point is, living with Emunah changes your life. Instead of stressing and fretting and getting anxious and frustrated, it's a piece of plastic. It's replaceable. So much else is not replaceable. It's all replaceable. It's all replaceable. It puts in perspective what's important and what's not important, what counts and what matters and what doesn't. It is all from Hashem. Okay, I have so many emails. Here's another fun one. Thank you for the weekly Emunah support group. It gives me tremendous strength and optimism, particularly as my family's been coping with a challenging time. We are blessed in every important way, but finances have always been tight, as both my husband and I are Jewish educators. Recently, we were given a very difficult financial challenge that coincided with our family relocating. Our current home will be occupied after us by a Kollel family that is generously supported by a wealthy benefactor. When touring our house, which has many doorways, 16, it was determined that we will have to leave the mezuzahs for the incoming family. This is not a well-known halacha in Hilchos mezuzah. But even when you move, you're not entitled to you can't leave the home without shmira. If a non-Jew is moving in, or mezuzahs will be taken down to paint, then you're allowed to take your mezuzahs with you. But if a Jewish family is moving right in after you, then you're not allowed to take your mezuzahs. You could replace them with less expensive ones. You can make the people who come in pay, but you're not allowed to take down your mezuzahs. That's to do with shmira, with the protection that the mezuzah offers on a home. So their house has 16 doorways. It was determined that we will have to leave the mezuzahs for the incoming family. The house we are moving to has no mezuzahs, meaning we'll have to bear the expense of purchasing all new mezuzahs. I had a flash of resentment. Why do I have to give my mezuzah to them? Can't their daddy warbucks cover their new mezuzahs and let us take ours, sparing us a big expense? But then I immediately let it go. Halacha's halacha, and accepting that is also part of Emunah. It's a powerful lesson. Part of Emunah is that when the Jewish law dictates that we have to do something in that moment, turns out the food was not kosher, you got to throw it out. It turns out the price of Jewish education is expensive. The lulav and esrog are expensive. To live as a Jew, to be observant, when we are based in for conversion, interviews a candidate, and when they stand in the mikveh, one of the questions we ask is, are you aware of how expensive it is to be an observant Jew? And are you still ready to go through with this? Do you know what the cost of kosher food? Do you know what the cost of being a Jewishly observant? Do you know what the cost of Jewish education is? Do you know what it costs to live in a Jewish neighborhood? And when they're out of their mind and say, yes, I want to do it anyway, we welcome them with open arms, and we love them with all of our heart. Halacha is halacha, and accepting that is also part of Emunah. It immediately felt better, and the resentment was gone. Hashem gave them my mezuzahs, and Hashem will help us buy for our new home. Hashem is the greatest daddy warbucks, and his largesse is infinite. Hashem is the greatest. She's resentful. Let their daddy warbucks, whoever's supporting them in Kollel, let them buy the new mezuzahs. Why do I have to be out on both ends? Because Hashem is the greatest daddy warbucks there is. He is the greatest sponsor. He is the greatest benefactor. He is the most generous. Furthermore, I reflected on how the Kollel has benefited our community, and now I get to be a part of their mission by leaving them 16 mezuzahs. How fortunate am I? I went on with my day, unencumbered by resentment and worry, unburdened by what was. Just joking. Lo and behold, as I listened to this week's Emunah share, you spoke all about the expense of buying mezuzahs. A few weeks ago, we spoke about that. You remember? How when people put up a new home, they knock down, build a new house, and they calculated the smart house and the rooms, the pool, and the backyard, but they forgot to calculate how much mezuzahs. Remember we spoke about? When they asked me, Rabbi, I could buy a $40, $60, $120, which one do I have to get? I say, let's go outside and look in your driveway. Let's see what kind of car you drive. And based on what kind of car you drive, we'll determine which mezuzah you should get. Are you satisfied with the bare minimum in your furniture, in your home, in the car you drive, in your technology, in your latest phone? Or do you have the newer version? Does it have the bells and whistles? In which case, you got to get that for your mezuzah and your tefillin as well. So, I spoke about that a few weeks ago, and that's the Emunah shir she turned on right when she was having to leave her mezuzahs and was beginning to feel resentment, and it turned things around, turned it around. It felt like a wink from the Eibishter, and that as I have faith in him, he's proud of me. Thank you for the weekly support group. May we hear good things for Klal Yisrael. So it's another example of how living with Emunah changes our life. Not just a delay at the airport or when they close the door, the gate agent. Living with Emunah, not just being able to be grateful that the car, somebody jumped in and put it in park and nothing happened. But living with Emunah also helps us live as passionate, practicing Jews, because we don't become resentful of halacha, of the expense of being a Jew and the halachas of being a Jew. And we're able to see Hashem in all that we do and be happy with the privileges that we have. Okay, one last one, then we'll dive into the text. I know I keep saying one last one, but I find them inspiring. This is the shir. The shir, they're the Magidei shir. When you send me emails, you're giving the shir. I just have the privilege to be able to read it, and then we'll get into Rav Moshe Shapiro Zatzal. Hope all is well with your family. I started listening to the shirim after I heard you speak about Brian Gabbitt's funeral. His neshama should have an aliyah. I have not stopped listening since. His neshama should have an aliyah from all the Torah. Our shir is sponsored in his memory. His yahrzeit was on Erev Tisha B'Av. It's hard to believe it's 5 years since this incredible walking role model of Emunah. Isn't Hashem amazing? That was his refrain. If you knew Brian, no matter what, I don't mean isn't Hashem amazing when he had all of his children, had his nachas, when he had a successful medical practice. I don't mean isn't Hashem amazing when he had a great golf shot. I mean when he was diagnosed with a death sentence of a glioblastoma and he made his way through those therapies, and at the very end of his life and with his last breaths, he still said, isn't Hashem amazing? Hashem is so amazing. You talk about it, he is a musar shmuz in Emunah. A few weeks ago, I was listening to the Parsha Shir. You talked about the Lubavitch Rebbe's yahrzeit and the holiness of davening at the Ohel. I was listening to this, and as I was at Life Crossroads, the Ohel is a special place. I went a few times this summer while I was in New York, and I said then, I'll say again now, when you're in Israel, you want to go to the Kotel. Why? Because it's the closest we come to the intense presence of Hashem, but it's also the place to go where you can find every kind of Jew. And if you want to see all your siblings, every kind of Jew, the entire cross-section of Klal Yisrael, you go to the Kotel. And where do you see that in America? At the Ohel of the Rebbe. No matter dressed differently, backgrounds, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, religious, non-religious, at the Ohel is a place to go. I went. Baruch Hashem, we just had a granddaughter. When my daughter was in labor, her mother was helping her. I had nothing to do. I went to the Ohel. Took my grandson. We went to the Ohel, and we davened until the phone rang. It's a girl, Baruch Hashem. We should all have only simchas. So at the Ohel, I spoke about it. And that's the Emunah shir this person put on that day. I have the privilege of choosing between two career paths. One that I had always wanted to do that makes less money, but that I think leans into the strengths that Hashem has given me, or path A. Or I chose path B, which makes significantly more money, better hours, but I was not completely sold on as the work day to day is not what I love to do. I recognize what a bracha it is between these two choices, but it was causing me a huge amount of stress. I hope to raise my family in the Jewish community in the same way I was raised, but it's expensive. It was hard for me to decide to choose a path when I cannot tell the future. I did all the tricks everyone says, sleep on it, flip a coin, but I was still unable to decide. That's when I heard your shir and decided to go daven at the Ohel, and I hoped I would gain clarity. I went to daven mincha at the Ohel that Friday afternoon, and also to daven for my zivug, which I always daven for to find a spouse, and I'm still waiting patiently for and sometimes impatiently for. As I walked out of the building after davening mincha and saying Tehillim for the hostages and soldiers, a sense of calm came over me. I don't know why, but I felt like everything would be okay. When I woke up Shabbos the next morning, I decided to choose path A, and I was happy with my decision. I don't know what the future will hold, and I don't know who my zivug will be, but this story is a happy ending, not because it ties up in a nice, neat bow, but because I'm working on my Emunah every day. When things happen, as they always do, I try to remind myself, I know it's from Hashem, I know it's for the good. Thanks for helping with the Emunah. Thank you to everyone who writes emails that inspire all of us to keep chugging along each and every week. Okay. I have a pile of more emails. It's taking enormous self-control. But Baruch Hashem, we're going to continue to learn in the weeks ahead, and we'll come to more. Rei Emunah, the beautiful sefer of Rav Moshe Shapiro Zatzal, the 13 Rambam's 13 principles of faith. We've been learning about emes ve'emunah. Emes is the abstract, conceptual, theoretical. The axiom, there is Hashem, there is a source, there's a first cause. Emunah, putting into practice. Emunah, making it real. Emunah is living with it regularly. Emes ve'emunah, it's why Avram Avinu both had the epiphany. Avram Avinu had to come to the conclusion, the reality. The Balabira, there's a creation, there's a building, there's an architect, there's a painting, there's a painter. But that Balabira also had to come up to him, because there also had to be the close, intimate, personal connection, relationship, putting it into practice. The Gemara Baba Basra. The Gemara Baba Basra Daf Tezayin. What does it mean to really be a heretic? What does it mean, heresy? To deny God's existence, to deny God's relationship, ongoing relationship with us. What is that really all about? So the Gemara Baba Basra says the following. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Chamesh Averos Avar Osa Rasha Ba'osa Ayom. We all know the story of the day that Esav HaRasha comes home from the field. He was doing what he always does. He hunts. What did he hunt? He hunted animals. He hunted fur. He also hunted women, even if they were married to other men. He hunted that which didn't belong to him. He came back exhausted, physically, emotionally spent. And that's the day that Yaakov Avinu purchased the Bechorah, the right to the firstborn. And we all know, therefore, received the brachas and the whole rest of the story. But Chazal tells Rabbi Yochanan, teaches that day, that Rasha, that wicked Esav, did 5 averos. What were they? Ba'al Nara Murasa. He was intimate with a engaged young woman. Haragas Anefesh, he murdered. Kafar Be'ikr, he denied God's existence. He was a heretic. Kafar B'tchias HaMesim, he denied the fundamental faith principle of our faith that we believe there will be a resurrection. B'shad Bizas Chora, and because of that, he diminished, demeaned, ultimately sold the right to the firstborn. V'amakar Kafar Be'ikr. And how do we know that he was a heretic? How do we know that? All we see from the psukim, from the text itself, it sounds like he was tired. And he said, give me some of that red stuff. Give me some of that red stuff. That looks good. That looks good. Where do you see he was kafar bikr? Where do you see that he was a heretic? Siv, v'lama zeliya b'chora. Why do I need this firstborn? This is not a commodity I need. This is not something I need to hold on to. I'm hungry. Happy to barter. Happy to trade it in. Happy to sell it away. Lama ze liya b'chora. From that word zeh, could say lama liya b'chora. Why do I need to hold on to the firstborn? But it says lama zeh li. Where else do we say the word zeh? Fast forward many years, the Jewish people will be standing on the other side of the banks of the river of the sea. They will have just survived miraculously. The sea split, opened up, a path came for them to go forward. When they thought they were stuck between the rock and the hard place, the Egyptians were pursuing them behind, and the sea stands in front of them before. They have nowhere to go. The walls are closing in. Do you ever feel that way? The walls are closing in. I have nowhere to go. There's no path that's open. How am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to recover from this illness? How am I going to get out of this predicament, this situation? How will this war end? How will the hostages come home? The walls feel like they're caving in. Kadosh Baruch Hu makes miracles. He made one last night. We should have said Hallel this morning. Do we begin to appreciate what happened last night? It wasn't clear, but now Hamas took credit, and it's been confirmed. There was an enormous explosion in Tel Aviv last night. A truck exploded, killing only its driver. It was an attempted terror attack. But before this truck filled with explosives could go create mass casualties, it exploded on the terrorist who was driving the truck. Kadosh Baruch Hu is amazing. Hashem is incredible. And he did an unreal chesed for Klal Yisrael. We could have woken up this morning to horrific tragedies, casualties, injuries, funerals, shivas, fear, panic, anxiety, terror. Hashem is amazing. And we just go on with our day. And you get the text, or you read the article, and you turn the page, you say, oh, what a coincidence. That's great. Thank God it blew up in his face. It's a miracle. Hodel Hashem ki tov. Stop, pause. Mamash. Maybe we should have said, it's a miracle. Hashem makes miracles when it feels there's no way out. So Klal Yisrael stood on the other side of the sea, and they pointed with their finger, and they said, Zeh keli va'anveyu. This is my Hashem va'anveyu, and I'm going to glorify him. You read that story, the truck blew up on the terrorists. Zeh keli va'anveyu. So the same word zeh. Lama zeh li bechora. Lama zeh li. Zeh keli va'anveyu. Chazal dash and Chazal learn. They conclude, they extrapolate from here. Esav was a kafar be'ikr. Esav was a heretic. He denied God's existence. He denied God's role. Says Rav Moshe Shapiro b'Mesh Amar Esav lama zeh li bechora. Shamu Chazal kfira b'zeh keli va'anveyu. I don't understand still. Where did Esav say it? He said, Lama zeh li bechora. Why do I need this firstborn status? What does this identity do for me? What does this membership get me that I'm the firstborn? Where do they see in that heresy? Where do they see in that kfira? What they saw was by saying, Lama zeh li bechora. What do I need this for? He violated zeh keli va'anveyu. Va'abir shalahamin be'ikar einu nigmar b'yediyas metzias yisborach. Emunah mashmausa laharos be'etzpa ala ikar. V'lomar alav zeh. Emunah is not. If I stop you and ask you, do you believe in God? You say, yes, I went to Isha Torah's Discovery Seminar, and I can repeat to you the Bible codes, and I can tell you all the evidence for God's existence, and I can quote St. Thomas Aquinas, and I can quote Rabbi Yehuda Levi, and I can quote from all over, and I'm happy to provide for you. I've read Rabbi Lawrence Kellerman's Permission to Believe. I'm happy to repeat and recite all the evidence for God's existence. Lovely. That's called emes. That doesn't need you to say it to be true. God's existence, God's presence, God's providence is all true whether you say it, whether you believe in it or not. That's emes. That's the emes. Kadosh Baruch Hu wants you to live a life not in the abstract, not in theory, not only while you're in shul. As we go about our daily lives, it's not just emes, it's emes, ve'emunah. What's the ve'emunah? Zeh keli v'anveyu. Wow. Zeh. To go through life and point and say, Zeh. I just got this parking spot. I ran into the person just this morning. I was leaving a voice note for somebody. And then as I was leaving the voice note, walking the hallway this way, they were walking the hallway this way. I pressed delete on the voice note. I said, just the person I was looking for. So Zeh, in that moment, thank you, Hashem. That's a wink. That's a smile. It's insignificant. It's inconsequential. I could have left the voice note. He could have responded. Maybe would have gotten the same result. But just what I needed in the moment I needed it. Zeh, Zeh, Hashem, Zeh, Zeh. Someone jumped in the car and put it in park. Zeh, Zeh. I went to the pizza store and they had the pies ready, even though I didn't call in advance. Zeh. And Zeh, I got good news from the laboratory. Zeh, I found it's tu b'av. It's tu b'av. Do you know what's miraculous? If you're married, it's a miracle. If you're happily married, it is an improbable miracle. I say it half jokingly, but statistically, I say it entirely seriously. All you have to do is look at the statistics and realize if you're married and if you're happily married, you're an anomaly. You're in the minority. You're a miracle. You're a miracle. The Gemara says, Kadosh Baruch Hu mezaveg zivugim. Kadosh Baruch Hu is the one who sets people up, and it's kasha kekriyas yamsuf. It is as hard as the splitting of the sea. The Maharal in his Chidusha Agados on Sota explains why is it as hard as splitting the sea? Because people are very self-centered. People are selfish by nature. We need to have that instinct to survive, self-preservation. People are independent and they're apart and they're self-centered. It's the nature of the world. And when two people who are separate and apart and distinct can come together and become one, says the Maharal, it is miraculous as something that was one becoming two. The sea is naturally one. Water molecules flow down to the lowest point and they stick together. And you can't take a fork and a knife and cut a bowl of water in two. It doesn't work. The water will keep coming back together because water is one. So when something which is one became two, it was a miracle. When something which is two become one, it is equally a miracle, says the Maharal. It's kasha kekriyas yamsuf. So if when we stood on the opposite side of the water, we said zeh, we pointed, zeh, wow. Every day you wake up and your spouse is still looking at you and talking to you and tolerating you and maybe even likes you, point and say, zeh keli v'anveyu. This is a miracle like splitting the sea. That's tu b'av. That's tu b'av. Tu b'av is disparate, separate, independent, competing things, unifying. All the reasons Chazal gave for celebrating Tu b'av, Shevet Binyamin, civil war, all the reasons that were given are all about being apart and divided and coming back together and becoming one, including the women putting white, dancing in the field. Imagine the Shidduch initiative today that would suggest that you'd be in Chayrim, nobody would talk to you. We're not even allowed to allow them to socialize. Watch people prance in a field and choose your one. I'm not suggesting that we go there or do that, but it's all about unification, unifying, becoming one. And anytime that things become one, zeh keli va'anveyu. So last night, a miracle happened in Tel Aviv. Zeh keli. And you woke up today, you're married? It's a miracle. So many people are looking and searching and waiting and yearning, and we daven for them. Today should be the day they find this tuba of today. Should be the day they find that happiness that they're looking for. You woke up, you're not only married, but you're happily married. You won the lottery. You won the lottery. And given the choice between winning a financial lottery and a marriage happiness lottery, it is maybe harder, but certainly better to win the marriage happiness lottery. And if you have it, you are a lottery winner. So stop complaining that you didn't win the actual monetary lottery. If you're healthy and you're married and you're happy, you've won the lottery. You think a lottery winner complains because they didn't win another lottery? You won a lottery once, lightning struck. You're grateful the rest of your life. You're not sitting there fetching, it's not fair to me, I didn't win another lottery. You won a lottery. You have your faculties, you're healthy, you're alive, you're married, you're happy. You won a lottery. Zeh keli. That's from Hashem. That's a wink, that's a smile. That's his doing. He's mezaveg zivugim. That's tu b'av. He's the one who did it. So MS is, this Hashem, here's all the arguments for his existence, Here's all the evidence for his existence. I can recite all the psukim and all the lamdas and all the makoros. Emunah is, I go through my day and I point, Zeh. The door slammed in my face at the airport, the gate agent. Zeh keli v'anveyu. That's Emunah. Emes ve'emunah. That too is Hashem. Everything that happens, it's all from Hashem. Misha odeh es ha'emes, says Moshe. Ach eina roa es ha'emunah b'metzia shemizvivo at sheyuchal lomar aleh zeh. A person who knows the truth, learns the truth, can repeat the truth, but doesn't live a life where the emunah is b'metzias, is not living with the emunah glasses, seeing Hashem behind everything, seeing Hashem everywhere. Person who doesn't see themselves surrounded by Hashem, Hashem is revealing himself in everything, doesn't want to point and say, Zeh, kederach shomer Yisrael zekeli v'anveyu, hare lo higir adayin le'emunah. That lo higia adayin le'emunah. Such a person has not yet arrived at living with emunah. What is the measure and metric of your living with emunah? Do you point and say, Zeh? Do you have a Hashkacha Pratis family WhatsApp group where daily people are recording, you're not going to believe it. And then it worked out. I hadn't studied for the test. The teacher didn't show up. It got every day. And then the parking spot. The pizza store, the pizzas were ready. I didn't have to wait. Big things, little things, things that worked in our favor and the thing that didn't go right. But that's also Hashem. It's also Zakeli V'anveyu. When it didn't go right and it didn't go well and didn't have that happy ending. If you're not living that, if you don't have a story to tell at the dinner table every night where you saw Hashem's hand in your life, if you can't point and say Zeh, then you've not yet arrived at Emunah. Siluka Emunah me'olam ha'mukhshariyuk b'geder kfira. And here's the chiddush. Here's the chap. You ready what Chazal understood from Esav? So you'll say, Esav didn't point and say Zeh. So he's a kofar? He's a kofar? If you got the parking spot, it worked out entirely right. You're running late, you say, Hashem, give me all green lights. This just happened to me recently. I was going somewhere to speak. I was running late. I said, Hashem, give me a kvitzas haderech. I promise you, you're not supposed to promise. I'm telling you, I never saw anything like it in my life. I got every green light. I beat Waze. It's a game I play regularly anyway. I beat Waze by like 7 minutes of when I was supposed to get there, on time, early, ready to go. Got every green light. Zeh keli v'anveyu. And if you don't point and say, Hashem, I asked you for the green lights, you gave me the green lights, Zeh keli v'anveyu, Chazal's conclusion, you're like Esav, you're kafar be'ikr. It's not you're a frum yid, you're an erlich yid. You could work on your emunah. No, you're a kofar. Even if you have the emes, you know the emes. You know the emes, there's Hashem. You know the emes, you can tell all the evidence. You live the emes, you daven this morning, you put on your talis and tefillin, you gave your stucca, you learned your daf yomi, you're dressed tznius, you're honest in business, you're living the emes. But if you don't live to the point that when he reveals his hand, when he winks and he smiles, you point and you say, Zeh, like Esav kafar be'ikr. Ad kedei kach, kafar be'ikr. It's mind-boggling. What an insight. What an insight. What was the evidence? It's the Chazal, Baba Basra. What's the evidence? Esav is kafar be'ikr? Because he failed to say Zeh keli v'anveyu. He had the Bechorah and he didn't say, wow, that too is Hashem, that I'm the firstborn. He gave it up, he sold it. He demeaned it, he diminished it. That too is a kafar be'ikr. Perish hamilim, what's the translation for Esav? Lama zeh li. What's lama zeh li? Klomar, Eini me'unyan badavar. I could care less about it. She'eneni mashmu'usi avuri l'chaim ba'ova. Because I don't live in the here and now. I don't live in the present. I could care less. What does it do for me? What does this membership in Klal Yisrael do for me? What does being a firstborn do for me? What do I need this membership for? What does this status get me? That membership doesn't get me into anywhere where I want to go, says Esav. What does it do for me? The identity of being a Bechor. Garnished. Nothing. Doesn't get me in anywhere. If I'm a platinum member, I get in the lounge. I get an upgrade. I get a free alcoholic beverage. That does something for me. That does something for me. If I have a membership to Costco, I could shop in Costco. That gets something for me. If I'm a pillar member at Boca Raton Synagogue, reserved seating, that gets something for me. What does Bechorah get for me, said Esav? Hepech mimachshava zu ha'maimar zekeli v'anveyu. K'mo shetergam unklos, avnei lebeis mikdasha, v'rambana ushivenu benaveh, b'mikdash nimtzes ha'kedusha b'ofen goliat she'efshel atzbiya level omar zeh. You know what it gets for you? Originally, Who was supposed to serve in the Beis HaMikdash? Not the Kohanim and Leviim, the Bechor. That status was going to get you special leadership place, a role in the Beis HaMikdash, in the holiest place, the holiest work and the holiest task. And Esav says, not for me. Doesn't do anything for me. Not interested. Not interested. Anyone who doesn't take upon themselves and say, I've been endowed with a great holiness. I'm not living in the world the same mundane, profane, secular way as everybody else. I'm living a holy life. I strive and I live not for happiness, I live for holiness. Holiness in how we speak and relate, holiness in how we dress, holiness in how we interpret the world, holiness in being on a mission to repair and redeem the world. I'm living here for holiness, not for happiness. If we don't live for holiness and point and say, Zeh, harehu ka'omer, lama li zeh b'chora. If I say, what do I need to be a Jew? Why do I have to wear my yarmulke? Why do I have to be a visible Jew? Why do I have to make a bracha? Why do I have to show that I'm... Yesterday I went shopping with his son-in-law. We both needed suits. It happened again. I got bageled again. The person in charge of the fitting room, they now have to count how many things you take in. I guess stealing is so prevalent. It's like a TSA, going into the fitting room. Count how many things on your way in, on your way out. You don't steal. I was going to put a suit in my pocket. I don't know exactly what to think. Anyway, so the woman on the way in, she says, the suit's for Shabbat? I said, maybe. Yeah, thank you. And on the way out, she says, Shabbat Shalom. I said, it's Sunday afternoon. But why was she? It was her neshama was screaming out. The Pintel Yid was screaming, I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew. I don't know what else to say to you other than Shabbat Shalom, but I want you to know I'm a Jew. My soul is screaming. It's screaming. That's what's happening. That's what anti-Semitism. The gift of anti-Semitism, it is waking up Jews who were fast asleep. And we weren't succeeding in waking them up. It's waking up a piece of ourselves that was fast asleep, in that it needed to be woken up. It needed to be woken up. So the challenge again, Shabbat Shalom on a Sunday afternoon. The Jews are waking up, the Kedusha of a Yid, the sanctity, the holiness of a Jew. We're not living for happiness. The whole world who's running for the pursuit of happiness, why do you have to run after happiness? You ever wonder why America, why in the Declaration, the Constitution, what is the right that we're given? The pursuit of happiness. You don't have to run after something that's not running away from you. It's the pursuit of happiness because it's fleeting, it's elusive, it's running away. If you're running after happiness, you're not going to catch up. If you're living for holiness, you're going to find a lot of happiness. If you live for happiness, you're miserable. We're in the most prosperous generation of all time and the most miserable generation of all time. If you're living for happiness, you find misery. And if you live for holiness, you're going to find a lot of happiness. So Esav says, Lama zali b'chora. What do I need this for? But we see, Zeh keli v'anveyu. This is my life, my identity, who I am and what I live for. I'm not kafar be'ikar. Kach nitin lavin is the Gemara, Adam Rishon kafar be'ikar haya. B'chete u'azav v'tzias ha'berur shal Emunah v'silik es ha'ikar me'olam shavo hu chai be'poel. The same was true with Adam Rishon. We'll pick up with this next week. The same was true with Adam Rishon. He too denied his role, his place. So kafar be'ikar. Zeh. Hashem, this is why I'm here. Why did I decide to go to this store, not that store? Why did I come at this hour, not earlier? Why did I decide to go try it on even though I could have just bought it? Because I needed to be bageled by that person. Have a good Shabbos on Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. That's why. And you point and you get in your car and you say, Zeli, Zekeli Vanveyu. This moment and every moment is you, Hashem. Everything about it. Hashem, your fingerprints are everywhere. Zekeli Vanveyu. To live a life not just of MS, to know Hashem exists in theory, but to live a life of Emunah, Hashem, your fingerprints are everywhere in my life. I don't have to be a detective. I don't have to, dust for fingerprints. I see them everywhere. Like on the mirror in your house when you have your children and grandchildren over, the window. You don't need to dust. You don't have to be a detective. The fingerprints are everywhere. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. His fingerprints are making a mess everywhere. You see them everywhere. And just like if you're lucky enough to have children and grandchildren, you don't mind those fingerprints because they're the biggest bracha that could be. Kadosh Baruch Hu's fingerprints everywhere is the biggest bracha that you could find. Should be zochah to continue to see his fingerprints everywhere, and his fingerprints on bringing the hostages home, sweeping victory. Hodul Hashem Kitov. We should pause to say thank you to Hashem for the miracle of last night in Tel Aviv. We shouldn't need such miracles, but thank him for the miracles. And here's the thing. When you're thankful, when someone's thankful to you, doesn't it make you want to do more for them? When someone doesn't even acknowledge that you've done something extraordinary for them, doesn't it make you want to lose their number and forget they exist? So if we want Hashem to do more of these miracles, stop and pause and say thank you. Say thank you. How could we not? It should be a day filled with besoros, toros, yeshuas, v'nechamos.